Right up here. Miss Galloway, you can put the water right on that stand. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please be seated. Give me your full name, spelling both for the record.
Donna, D-O-N-N-A, Galloway, G-A-L-L-O-W-A-Y.
Now, Ms. Galloway, I'm going to ask you to pull right up to that microphone.
Are you telling I'm too not loud enough?
Well, that's not exactly what I was going to say. That particular microphone does not.
You notice those who know me are chuckling about that.
Yeah, well, you know, I have friends like that too. At least I call them friends. That does not amplify your voice.
Okay.
But it is the microphone that goes to the tape recording, the CD. We don't tape record anything anymore. Anyway, it's what records your voice for the purposes of a transcript. And so it's very important that you speak your answers nice and clearly.
Okay.
The other thing that I would tell you is, I don't know if you were here early on, but you're not to discuss, if we don't get done with you, you're not to discuss your testimony with anyone.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Give us your full name for the record, please.
Donna Galloway.
Good afternoon, Pastor Galloway, right?
Pastor's fine.
Okay. You were the pastor of the Methodist Church in Morenci back in 2010, is that correct?
That's correct.
So give us a little background about yourself, please. Tell us about your how you became a pastor, where you worked at prior to going to Morenci.
Oh, okay. I started out as a pastor in the Salvation Army. I come from a small town in northern Michigan, a large family, which is why I fit in Morenci quite well, because small town, etc. And I started as a Salvation Army pastor. Did that for 25 years, almost 27 years. And then became a United Methodist pastor, had a break of about 2.5 years, and then became a United Methodist pastor. Came to Morenci. Morenci was my first charge, my first appointment was Morenci, and then while I was in Morenci, I took on the Weston United Methodist Church. So I did that for 11 years.
Okay, which is nearby Morenci, but not too far away.
Right, right.
Okay. When did you first start in Morenci?
The end of June in 2010. I came a little earlier than most pastors in that move because I was not coming from another church. I was coming from out of my retirement, so to speak, and coming into Morenci.
Do you have a special recollection of meeting the Skelton boys?
I certainly do. I was moving in, and the boys saw that there was a car in the driveway. I don't know if they were taking a walk or riding their bikes, but they didn't live too far from the parsonage. And I was taking a break, sitting on the porch, and they came up and they came up and introduced themselves to me and asked if there was anything they could do to help me move in. And I said, well, everything that I had with me at that point, because my husband was bringing some other things, I didn't, but maybe, another day. And Alex asked if I was going to have Vacation Bible School.
Vacation Bible School.
Vacation Bible School. They really liked Vacation Bible School. And I said, well, I think I can do that. And they said, tomorrow? I said, I'll need a little more time than tomorrow to plan. And we kind of sat on the steps of the parsonage and chatted for a little bit. And they said they wanted to show me where they lived. I walked to the corner with them of Congress and looked down. They said, that's our house right down there. And it wasn't too much longer before I met Tanya, because apparently they went home and told her everything, especially about Vacation Bible School. And we did have Vacation Bible School, and that's another great memory, because we made boats out of boxes, which they took home. Sorry about that one. But I picked up refrigerator boxes and things, and we made boats to sail on the Sea of Galilee, and the boys just loved that.
So it sounded like they became active in the church, very much so at that point in time.
Yes, they were very active. Saw them every Sunday morning.
So we're talking about starting roughly in July of 2010, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And was either of their parents with them, or both their parents with them?
Both of their parents and grandparents, sometimes a great aunt. It just depended on who was visiting and who was checking things out.
Okay. As summer progressed, did you continue to come to know the Skelton family?
Yes, absolutely.
Explain how that came about.
Well, we had different events at the church. We had a family time. We had an introduction to the pastor. Never did get to teach them what they wanted to learn so badly. I introduced myself with a trick that nobody else could do, and that is that I could blow up balloons with my nose. And the boys sat and watched, trying to figure it out. And they asked me if I would teach them, and I said, only if your mother will say yes. And that was at a family gathering. We were in what was called the Rotunda area, and she just shook her head because that was kind of a strange thing, but it was fun. And they thought that because I could do that, I was really, really special.
So as summer started to get passed by and into fall, did you personally become aware there was some problems with the Tanya and John Skelton marriage?
Yes.
Tell us how you found out about this.
Various discussions. As pastors, we get phone calls. People say, hey, you need to be praying for. I was also friends with Tanya's mom, and we probably saw each other 2 or 3 times a week, and had lunches together and whatever. So I knew that there were some problems, but I knew that they were doing some counseling, and they were wanting to work on it, partly because of the boys and partly because they needed to work on it.
Okay. At some point, did you become aware that a couple of the boys wound up in Florida for a while?
Yes, that was an interesting time. That was the first time that I, as a pastor, saw my congregation rally around a family that was part of it. And there was no hesitation when I picked up the phone and called various people and said, hey, Tanya and Bev need a little help getting down to Florida to get the boys. Can you help? And I did not have one person say no.
So how did they help?
They helped by providing financial assistance, money for gas and for staying at a motel if necessary, so that Tanya could go down and get the boys and come back home with them.
And that was a congregational ask? You
Yeah,
asked-
and it wasn't an ask by Tanya and her mom. It was an ask by me. I was the one who, went to the folks and said, hey, this is what we need. This is what we need to do. And not a moment's hesitation from that congregation of people.
So what did you find, what happens next with your relationship with the Skelton family after this?
I still am the pastor. I was still, I sat on Tanya's couch and we rolled socks and folded clothes just to talk, just so that she had a sounding board. I was not trained. I had experience, but I was not trained in professional marriage counseling. I advise that they do that, but I was trained in
I'm
friendship.
going to ask you to wait just a moment. We seem to be having some technical difficulties. Oh, you're not listening.
You are in the meeting now.
All right, I think we're back.
Okay.
So you mentioned, or you started to mention that you weren't necessarily trained yourself in marital counseling?
In marital counseling. And also, from my experience as a pastor, I knew that counseling with a couple in the congregation was never a good idea. No matter what, somebody thought there would be sides, whether there was or wasn't. And I decided that I would be the pastor and they could find someone who would be the marriage counselor.
Okay.
And so I was available to anyone who needed me.
Okay. Then what happens next?
Oh, what happens next is a lot of different things. We had Vacation Bible School, Cub Scouts started, school started. The boys were in a club at school, the Bible club, which one of the ladies at the church taught. And they would come in on Sunday morning. I was usually in the upstairs part of the church. I would hear them come in the front door and run across the rotunda. I could hear their feet, three sets of feet as they hit the stairs and up to me, because they wanted to say their verse for me that they had for school. Because if they said this verse at school, then they would get a prize or get to draw out of a prize box or something. And because of their age difference, they each had a different part of the verse to say. And it was always Alex that started, because he would say the whole thing. And he thought I didn't know that he did that because he wanted to help his brothers with their part. Because if he said the whole verse, their part would have been the first part, or the first and second part, and then, so he didn't know I knew that, but I figured him out. And the verse that they shared and were working on just prior to their disappearance was in Romans. We know that all things work together for the good, and that was the first part. That was Tanner's part to say. We know that all things work together for the good. And then the next part of that verse is for those who love God. And so Alex's part was those two together. And Andrew was, we know that all things work together for the good to those who love God and are called according to his purposes. They gave me their little strip of paper, which I still have in my Bible study, my study guide, study Bible, and they had it nailed. They nailed that verse, and that's was a good Sunday. That Sunday, and most Sundays I would hear them as they'd come in, Pastor Donna, And wherever I was, I called out to them, and it was just a good way of being greeted on a Sunday morning.
When was that? When was that verse told to you like that?
That verse was the November verse.
November verse. Okay. So we're into November in this situation now, right?
Yes.
And as you get, are you aware if the boys are in children's counseling at this point in time? Or you have any knowledge of that?
Yes, I did know that. Not how intense it was, but I did know that they were talking with someone, which I was happy with.
And did you know whether or not John and Tanya were in counseling at all at this point in time?
Early on, but by that point, I don't think they were counseling anymore. I think it had come to the point where it wasn't going to be resolved through counseling.
And throughout this period of time in September and October, were you having conversations on occasion with John Skelton?
Yes, and with Tanya, and with the boys, and yeah, I mean, we had Cub Scouts during the middle of the week, Sunday services. Occasionally, I saw them in the neighborhood when, I was out and about in the neighborhood. So yeah, or at the pizza place downtown.
And they would. And
we met there more often than I would like to say.
And during this period of September and October and into November, John was going to church?
Yes, he was.
And Tanya was going to church?
Yes.
As well as the boys?
Yes.
And part of you would give a sermon every week?
Every week.
And then one over at Weston too?
Yes.
Same one?
No.
Okay.
It would be the same scripture, but the congregations were different, so spoke to the congregations.
But you're doing double duty on Sundays?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as a part of your sermons or teachings or themes, did you at some point in time stress on the word home?
Absolutely. Our theme, which I had set within the first month that I was there, I already had set the theme for Christmas, which was Come Home for Christmas. And I talked about home, that we, if you feel uncomfortable in the world in which we live, if things bother you and you feel like you don't fit, it's because you don't. The scripture tells us we're all strangers and aliens in a strange land. And that's because we don't belong here. We belong in heaven. And heaven is our home. This is just the stopping off place until we get to spend eternity with God. And that has always been a main theme. It's a main belief that I've always had and always expressed, that if you don't fit, it's because you shouldn't fit, because this world isn't our home. Our home is in heaven. That's where we belong, and that's where we should be.
And this was a teaching that you would
Yes.
Say out many times.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. It was important.
would this be a teaching that you made Tanya aware of and John aware of?
Well, if they listened to my messages, and I'm certain that they did, at least I didn't see any sleeping. But yeah, that would have, yes, they would have gotten that impression. And even in general conversation, if somebody were to say to me, so where are you going? Well, sometimes my response was, and still is, heaven, if God still will have me. So, that heaven is my home.
So as you get closer and closer to Thanksgiving, your plan, your individual plan, was not to be in Morenci on Thanksgiving. Is that right?
Right.
In 2010.
Right.
Tell us what your plans were for Thanksgiving of 2010.
My plans were to be with my daughter and my grandchildren in Hubbard Lake, Michigan, which is up near Alpena, in northern Michigan.
That's roughly how long a drive from Morenci area?
From Morenci, it's about 5.5 hours, depending on who's driving, me or my husband.
And so what day did you go up there?
We would have gone up there Wednesday evening after our Bible study, if we had Bible study. If not, we would have gone Wednesday afternoon.
The 24th.
Right.
Okay. So were you there for Thanksgiving then on Thursday up there?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall that Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving day itself?
Just that I had fun with my grandkids. We stayed in our home that we owned at that time, that our older daughter was living in. Was a good time.
Okay.
But I was ready and excited to get back to finish my planning and get started with the plans for Christmas.
Okay. So the next day, did you start to go home, or were you planning on going home on the 26th or the 27th? What was your original plan?
Well, our original plan was to stay until late afternoon on Friday, just spend a little more time with our grandkids. But we decided to leave a little bit earlier just because I was a little anxious to get back and make sure things were done the way they were supposed to be.
Okay. So you left
Friday.
Early afternoon?
Yeah,
1 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
something like that, yeah.
Okay. Do you receive a phone call or a message or something on your way home?
On the way home, the phone rang, and it was my lay leader calling to let me know that he was at Don and Bev's, at Tanya's parents', and that John had not brought the boys home after he had them for Thanksgiving, and that they weren't able to find them. And so we probably for the last hour and a half or so, maybe 2 hours on the way home, I was back and forth on the phone with Bob, who was the lay leader, as he kept me posted on what was happening, and didn't go home, went directly to Don and Bev's house.
Don and Bev would be Tanya's mother and father?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a recollection of roughly what time it was when you got there?
I don't know. I
Was it dark?
Yes, it was dark. Most everybody was kind of set up in Don's man cave, the garage, and that's where I went directly to.
So we are talking, we're still talking about the 26th. We haven't got to the 27th yet, right?
No.
This is November 26th, the Friday.
Right.
And when you arrived there, did someone update you as to what was going on?
Yes.
And part of that update, that include the fact that John Skelton was in the hospital?
Yes, it did.
Did you at that point in time, did you know what hospital he was in?
No, I did not know what hospital he was in or why he was in the hospital. That was probably an hour or so after I got there that learned why he was in the hospital.
And where he was at?
And where he was at.
Okay. And you had conversation with Tanya during this stretch of time?
Yeah.
And at some point in time, did a phone call come in to Tanya?
Lots of phone calls came in for Tanya.
How about a phone call from John?
Yes.
You recall that?
I recall that he wanted to talk with her. And at that point, she was trying to talk with him, but couldn't because she just was too stressed.
Okay. So what happens? Did you talk to him?
I talked to him. That seemed to be what happened. Passed the phone to Pastor Donna. And that was okay because I was there to do whatever needed to be done.
So did you recognize John's voice on the phone?
Yes.
And initially what did he say to you?
He asked me to let him talk to Tanya, and I said, she's not going to talk to you. She's upset. She's, trying to figure things out. And he said, well, what's the problem? I need to know the problem. And I tried to explain to him that we just needed to know where the boys were, and could he just tell us where the boys were? That would fix everything. And it was the beginning of I don't know.
Of him saying, I don't know?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's when it started of I don't know, and then it evolved into a whole bunch of different stories. I guess that's the only way to put it, because it just went from one thing to another. Each time that he called, or each time that someone talked with him, it was something different. And that was at the time, people were still looking all over the neighborhood for the boys, and had started looking even further away. So we didn't know, and I told him that he would be able to talk to her if he would tell her what was going on.
Okay. So we're talking about this phone call that occurred between you and Mr. Skelton on November 26th,
Yes.
Friday evening, right?
Right.
And during that phone call, did he explain to you at that time what was going on?
Well, he didn't explain to me as much as he said, well, I took them home. They went home. I don't know what the problem is. And then the story got all twisted around, and somebody else had them, and then there was a point where he couldn't remember what had happened with them. And each time that I talked with him, and I think he called a couple more times that evening, it just got more confused.
So we're going to move forward just for a second, then we're going to back up. But at some point that evening, late in that evening, you actually went to the hospital.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So before that happens, though, you have these phone calls or phone call with John Skelton, and at some point in time, does he mention the name Joanne?
He did mention Joanne, but I didn't know any Joanne. He said, well, she was a friend of his, and that he thought maybe he had sent the boys off with Joanne.
During this phone call, on the evening of the 26th, did he indicate to you that Joanne had come to get the boys?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I've been pretty lenient, but this is completely leading.
I thought you were going to allow that. It's okay. I'll stop. Okay.
Can we
Well-
approach briefly?
Sure. There is a objection on the floor from Mr. Amadeo that the prosecutor is leading. Any response, Mr. Hartman?
It was a leading question, but it was based solely on the earlier statements that we had previous to the hearing. So I will form a different type of question for the next question.
I would ask if you could approach this with a little less leading.
I'll do my best.
And to be clear, Judge, I understand it's 16 years ago. I don't mind some leading, and I have a great deal of respect for the
And I
prosecutor.
understand why you
But-
indicated that. I also understand what the issue is, and let's see if we can solve it. We may go a little bit and have some further.
Okay, thank you. So if you recall, Did Mr. Skelton indicate what time he gave the boys to this Joanne?
Sometime in the morning, because at a certain point he talked about how disappointed the boys were that Tanya had not had Thanksgiving with them, that she had had Thanksgiving with other family members and not with them.
Okay.
And the boys were disappointed.
So right now, again, we're still talking about Friday.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And did the conversation come up between the two of you as to whether or not he was able to tell you what Joanne's last name was?
He didn't. He couldn't remember. And I said, well, how can you give your kids to somebody who you don't know their name? That just kind of stunned me a bit at that point. And he said that she was a friend, and I said, well, did the boys know her? I mean, I'm a mom. You don't do that. And he said that the boys knew her because they had met her and had snacks together, and they were very comfortable with her. And he needed a break, and they needed a break because they were heartbroken and disappointed that they couldn't be at Thanksgiving with their mom, and that she, he said to me then as well, all I wanted was Thanksgiving together as a family, the last holiday we'd have together as a family, and she wouldn't do that, and it disappointed the boys and disappointed him, and it was just something that he didn't want the boys around while he was trying to cope with that.
Did he give you any? Hold on. Let me ask.
Okay.
Let me ask another question. Did he give you any idea what he thought the person's last name was, if you recall?
I don't recall whether he told me a last name or not, but I said, well, where are they? You do know where they went. And he said to me then, well, by Jackson, somewhere by Jackson. They live by Jackson. That's where she's from. And then he told me that, I said, well, do you have a phone number? No, he didn't, but there was a phone number at home that he wrote on an envelope somewhere.
Did he indicate where he supposedly had met this person before?
Yeah, he met her, the first time he met her, her car had broken down on the road, and he stopped because of being a truck driver. Truck drivers do that stuff. He stopped to help her get her car running, and then he noticed that she had a Cafe Mom sticker on her car, and so he looked her up on Cafe Mom, and that's how they started this friendship.
So he told you on the phone call on November 26th that he recalled not the person's last name, but the fact that she had a Cafe Mom bumper sticker?
Yeah, that he remembered that because of the work he had to do on her car, whether it was changing a tire, I don't know what it had to do with, but her car was broken down.
And you said something about them sharing snacks with the boys?
Yeah, he said that they shared snacks before, she shared snacks with the boys, and I understood that was at the house maybe before she took them, that they had snacks together.
And did you ask Mr. Skelton if he had a telephone number for Joanne?
Yeah, I did, because I thought, if you're going to give your kids to somebody, you got to know where they're at. he told me then that that was when he said there was a phone number on the envelope at home, somewhere by the computer or something. She had written it down for him before she left.
Did he say whether or not, what if anything did he say about the boys being returned?
They should have been back already. He didn't know why they weren't back and where they were. They were supposed to be home before 5 or by 5. There was some event going on and that they were planning on going to. But I said, they're not home. So, where are they?
What, if anything, did Mr. Skelton say to you on the phone about his physical condition?
He was complaining that he wasn't being taken care of very well at the hospital, that he was in a lot of pain, and that they weren't giving him enough pain medicine, that it wasn't helping whatever it was they were giving him. It wasn't helping, and that he just couldn't understand why everybody was being so mean to him. Tanya not wanting to talk to him, police showing up, not giving him pain medicine, all of those things. He couldn't understand why he was being treated so poorly.
So, subsequent to that phone call or phone calls, did you made a decision to go to the hospital that late that evening? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, why did you decide to go to the hospital late that evening?
I thought that if I sat and talked with him, he would tell me where the boys were. That if I prayed with him, if I gave him the dignity that in my head that I thought he was looking for, and the respect, that he would tell me where the boys were.
So do you recall approximately what time it was you got down there?
Well, it was after visiting hours, unless you're a pastor.
Pulling rank again.
Yeah, and it would have been, would have been late. I'm sure it would have been before midnight, but not a whole lot before that.
And were you able to see John?
Yes.
Did you see John by yourself at that time?
No, because he was under protective custody. There was a police officer there.
Okay. Was the FBI there at that point in time?
I'm not sure if they were there. But I know that there was a police officer that was there at that time.
In the room while you were there?
Yes.
Okay.
Because of the protective custody situation.
And did you tell John Skelton why you came here, why you came to the hospital to see him at this late at night?
Yes.
What did you tell him?
I told him that I came there because I wanted to pray with him. I wanted to pray for the boys, to find the boys, and that we could pray together. And I wanted him to know that he could trust me and tell me where the boys were. I just was concerned, and I saw the love that John had for his boys, and I told him that. And so I wanted for him to let me know where they were so we could bring them home. He was bothered by the fact that other people were looking, but that was kind of throughout the whole time. He was bothered that he couldn't be out looking.
Okay.
And but also he didn't think he could look because he was injured in his foot and ankle, and the pain that he was in. And I tried to explain to him that everybody was in pain because they wanted the boys home. And he said, well, I don't know why they're not. I don't know why they're not.
Okay, what happens next in this conversation?
I didn't spend a whole lot of time there at that point. Partly I was tired and I was confused by what was going on. I prayed with him. I gave him all kinds of opportunities. Just, John, just tell me that, tell me where they are. But he seemed to not know at that point. Well, they're with Joanne. And where's Joanne? Well, and there was getting nowhere in talking with him.
At some point, did he become emotional?
Did he?
Yes.
He was emotional from the phone call on.
Describe what you mean.
Not making light of the fact that if you've injured yourself that you're going to have pain. But he seemed to be more focused on his pain, and his tears came more when he was talking about the pain he was in. There weren't the tears about where are my boys, who has my boys. Those were statements, those were questions, but there wasn't the emotion behind those that there was about my foot really hurts and I just don't know if I can stand this pain, and it was that's when the tears came.
When he was talking about his injuries?
When he was talking about his injuries and what had happened.
Not so much when he was talking about the boys?
No, he was insistent when he was talking about the boys, and he was very firm when he was talking about the boys. I don't know where they are. I want to see the boys. I miss them. And I said, well, you were the last one with them.
Yeah,
Tell us where they are.
I'm going to object. She's completely giving an opinion on psychological studies. She's not been deemed an expert. She, respectfully to the pastor, she does not know if he was crying simply about his injury or the boys, and she cannot make that determination without being qualified as such.
Well, I didn't perceive the answer that she was giving as one. She did express an opinion indicating that she believed the pain, the crying or the emotional response came when he talked about his physical pain, his hurt ankle, and that when he spoke about the boys being missing, he didn't have that emotional response. And I think that is different than expressing an opinion where she's saying, I think this came from one and this came from the other. She's just saying that when he would talk about the boys, it was direct and it was specific. And there wasn't the emotion associated with it. And then he would talk about his physical pain and he would become emotional and upset. So she's saying that those were the two things she observed. I don't think that that is the kind of thing that would require her to be an expert. She's making an observation about what was happening when she was having this discussion. So I'm going to overrule that objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did he show any emotion like you've described during the period of time where he spoke about Tanya?
I'm sorry?
Did he show any emotion like the way you've described so far when he spoke about Tanya?
Initially, he cried. He loves, I love Tanya. I don't know what I can do to help. I don't know, and there was emotion there, and there was an intensity in that emotion, and he was crying, he was crying, and it wasn't sobbing or anything like that. There were tears. And I said that all of that would change if he would just tell Tanya where the boys were. That, you know, he asked me, can she ever love me again? And I said, I don't know that she doesn't still love you, but you got to tell her where the boys are. And I cried. He just didn't seem to understand that the boys were the focus. He was focused on himself. He was focused on Tanya's reactions. He wasn't focused on the boys. And I was focused on the boys. I had to, it was like mental gymnastics for me to keep up with how he went from one to the other, but he seemed more focused and more emotional when he talked about his love for Tanya and why she, you know, now she would never love him anymore. And why? Where are the boys? I kept trying to bring it back to that, and was not successful.
Ultimately, what if any statement did he make to you? And again, we're talking about you in the hospital late in the evening on the 26th, about some of these themes and teachings that you have presented to him in the past.
Well, he said that he knew that the boys were safe. He said that to me several times. The boys are safe. Trust me, Pastor, the boys are safe. Well, where are they safe at? Just you telling me they're safe doesn't help me know where they're safe at and what they're safe from. He said, you know, the boys, they should be home because that's where Joanne took them. She was supposed to take them home. They should be there. And I explained repeatedly that they weren't, and that's why we were in the middle of all of this, because they weren't home.
So he was using the word home?
Yes, he was.
Do you want to keep going, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Was there anything else significant with your discussions with him on the 26th at the hospital that you can recall?
No, not at the hospital. It was just a repeat of what had been said on the phone, and the boys were with Joanne, they were with him, then he sent them with her. The things he couldn't remember, like he didn't remember her phone number, but he had it written down.
Okay.
Not really much. The biggest issue for him at that time was, it seemed to be the pain that he was in.
All right, so the next day, November 27th, you fielded another phone call directed to Tanya, is that correct?
Yes.
And where were you at when this phone call occurred?
In the command center at the police station. Tanya was on one side of the entrance. She was closest to the front door entrance of the police department. And there was a big counter in between us and a hallway, probably about the distance we are right now away from each other. And her phone rang, and she...
Thank you.
Okay, her phone rang, and I don't know who had it, and they looked and they said, well, it's from John again, and she just said, give it to Pastor. And so I walked over to the counter, took the phone, I answered the phone. I was standing against the wall that kind of separates from where I was standing. I could look out into the police station, or I could look to the left and look into where the city council chambers are and the little offices and things that were there. And he asked why.
Well, let me back up. Was it John on the phone?
No, because it was coming through the hospital or the jail, actually. I think by that point they had transferred him over to...
November 27th was still hospital we're talking about.
Okay. There's a phone call for Tanya from John, and I said, I'll take the phone call. And so I took the phone call. And the FBI agent was standing to my left, and I was leaned back against the wall. And he said, why won't Tanya talk to me? And I said, she will talk to you if you're going to tell her where the boys are. If you tell her where the boys are, she will hear everything you have to say. He asked if she would come up there, and I said, if you are going to tell her where the boys are, she will talk to you. Is she mad at me? Is she thinking about us? And I said, she can't think about anything except her boys right now. She's a mom. She's not worried about you or me or anybody else. She wants to know where her boys are. And she wants them home, and they're not home. And he said to me, Pastor Donna, you of all people should understand what I mean when I say that they're home. I just kind of slid down the wall and sat on the floor. He hung up the phone. I didn't hang up, he hung up. And I knew then that we weren't going to get a phone call from Andrew saying, hey, got dropped off here and this is where we're at. I knew that Alex wasn't going to figure out some way to get from wherever they were at to home. And I knew that Andrew was standing on one side of Tanner and Alex was on the other, and that they had their arms around him and they were just saying, "It's okay, we're gonna be okay. We're together, we're gonna be okay."
Okay, you need a moment. You need
I knew at that point, when he said, you of all people should know what I mean when I say I sent him home. I knew that they were dead. I kept my hope alive. I kept encouraging everybody to to keep on, but in my heart of hearts, I knew what he had done. I didn't know what he had done other than that he had taken the lives of the boys.
That's the conclusion you drew based on the word he used, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let's skip ahead to the next day. You're back at the hospital, and there's discussions going on. There's an FBI agent there. You recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point in time, you're talking with him and the FBI is talking with him, is that correct?
Right.
And at some point in time, something is said by Mr. Skelton that leads to a search.
When he and I were first talking, and again, I just wanted to know where the boys were. And I kept hoping beyond hope that where they were and that I was wrong. And he talked about, a couple of times he talked about he was like in the clouds and there was this big hole and he didn't know, it was a black hole that was just swallowing his thoughts, and he didn't know where anybody was or what was going on. He didn't understand. And then he talked about the fact that Tanya was at her sister Tennille's house for Thanksgiving, and that the boys were really sad that she couldn't decide to have Thanksgiving with them. And so he drove out to Tennille's house, and the kids looked through the window. Well, I knew those boys well enough to know that one or the other of them was going to march up on that porch and open the door and say, "Hey, we're here." They weren't going to stand outside a window and watch their mom and the rest of the family or whoever was there have Thanksgiving dinner when they were that close. And he talked about the school that was there, and that he thought maybe he had gone in the school, but there was this big black hole, and he couldn't, he wasn't sure. And I said, "Well, is that where the boys are?" "No, I don't know." He said, "I don't know an awful lot." He referred to things falling into this hole, his memories, and he didn't know if it was a dream or if it was a reality. He wasn't sure, but he said the boys were really sad and they watched through that window and they cried, and so they decided to leave and come back to Morenci. And it was his mention of the school and being at Tennille's. By Tennille's was an abandoned or closed down elementary school, because I rode in the car with the FBI when they went out there to search.
So you actually went to the scene?
I stayed in the car because I didn't want to find anything. I didn't want to see anything. But yes, I stayed in the car, and there was all kinds of construction stuff. Apparently they had started fixing it. I just remember that I could see that at the area. But the FBI agents searched that building.
Searched the school?
Yeah. I don't know what the name of the school was or anything. I just know that it was that closed school.
You indicated this was a school somewhere near Tennille's home?
It was a school in Kunkel, which is, I knew that Tennille lived in Kunkel. I'd never been to her house, but he mentioned it because he said they saw it when they were standing by the window watching the Thanksgiving and watching Tanya laugh and enjoy herself, but not be with them.
So after this part of the discussion occurred at the hospital, you, along with the FBI agents, jumped in a car
Yeah,
and drove to this schoolhouse that was mentioned by Mr. Skelton in your conversation.
yes.
And how long were you there at that scene by the schoolhouse?
That was one of the late nights. I sat in the car with Mark for, it had to be close to 45 minutes.
Mark who?
Pilbeam, a friend of John and Tanya's.
So Mark Pilbeam was at the hospital along with yourself?
Yes.
He was Mark Pilbeam in the hospital room with you and the FBI agent when this discussion occurred?
No, it was just me and the agent and the ones that were observing through the observation room.
Okay. And at the end of that 45 minutes or so that you discussed, what happens next?
Because it was really late, we came home. I mean, they dropped me off at my house.
Nothing was found. Nothing was located.
Nothing that I'm aware of. Nothing was found at the schoolhouse.
No one told you they found anything.
Right.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to back up a little bit. You're going up to Hubbard Lake
Yeah.
for Thanksgiving, and as you leave town, did you drive by where the Skelton house is, or nearby where the Skelton house is, when you're leaving town?
Oh, yes, yes. And the boys were playing outside.
Did you notice any other cars in the driveway or anything at all like that?
No.
Do you recognize the boys though?
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about November 24th, the Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were easy to recognize unless they were in the woods somewhere, because they always had their camo on.
Did you notice if it was just them, those three, or was anybody, other kids playing in the yard there?
No, I just saw them. And I'm not sure all three of them were in the yard. I'm not sure that Tanner was outside.
Okay. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you. Hold on a second. Mr. Amadeo may have some questions for you.
Judge, we approach briefly.
Ms. Cannon, can you join us? For those of you who don't know, our air conditioning just shut off. Let me, Pastor,
Yes.
I was ever so hopeful that we could finish your testimony today. How far a drive is it from your home to here?
Maybe 50 minutes.
I have my answer. We're going to bring you back tomorrow.
Okay.
We start at
30.
10:30. I had hoped to finish this today, but I also know that we're not going to have air conditioning, and I've pushed the overtime button now. So I'm going to ask if you'll be indulgent and go back tomorrow.
Anything that will make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Judge, if it helps, I'd stipulate to her Zooming if that helps her travel. I'd have no issue with that.
50 minutes is not a big deal, especially
No.
across the farmland that we're talking about. It'll be a beautiful drive tomorrow.
Right.
But I do appreciate that, Mr. Montiel, and both parties were working to try and make this a one-day adventure for you. But I think at this point we need to call it a day and everybody go home, regroup, and we'll come back in the morning. Okay? I'm going to ask that we don't have a lot of conversation right now because I'm going to have some wrap up here. Is there anything we need to take up before tomorrow morning that we could finish tonight before we get too warm in this courtroom? I mean, it's been a little chilly all day long in here. However, it will amaze you how quickly it gets not chilly.
Judge, I believe the people wanted to play a video. I don't know how long of a clip you want to play. Maybe we could do that. I don't know if we can get in before 10:30 tomorrow, but it's like a half-hour video, which might save us some time. You guys tell me.
It's more like an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh. Well, I could be here at 8. I don't know if the judge is going to be cool with that.
I have a morning docket, thank you.
You understand?
I'm here ringing.
So I was just thinking of ways to save time, but I'll be here whenever you tell me.
All right. Well, why don't you get here at 10 just on the off chance that we have something that needs to be taken up?
No problem, Judge.
Before we get to testimony, everyone else will commence at 10:30. I think those of you from the press will be here about 10 to put everything back where it belongs, according to you. We'll see you all then.
Thanks.
All right, please.
If they want to leave it, if they want to leave there, that's fine. This will all stop.
Thank you.